¿no? ¿Sí? Cuando lleguen ya vamos a arrancar. Venga, pues gracias.
All right, we're going to begin. So there's not a lot of people here. Thank you very much for being with us, those of you who are either here in present watching this by streaming or watching it later on. So I'd like to begin by asking a question to this very select audience I've got here in the front row. Could you remember, can you remember the name of your favorite teacher? That person that had the greatest impact to come on your education. Have you got that name in your head? You've got a first name, a last name in your head? You, please. Marty, okay. Eva.
¿Alguna más? Pilar.
Yo no sabría decirte.
¿Porque no hay ninguna o porque hay muchas? ¿O muchos? ¿Seguro?
Rachel e Isabel.
Loli y? El senyor Miquel. Fijaros, menos...
So except for one person, all of us, not only have we remembered the name of this teacher that had this impact on our lives, but we've actually smiled while thinking about that person. We've seen how important those people are in our lives. So I could ask you about a professor who had a negative impact on your life, and I'm sure you'd remember that as well. But let's focus now on those teachers who in one way or another have changed our lives. I'm here as an entrepreneur. I come from Silicon Valley, this area where so many companies started and developed, companies that have changed our lives. But Silicon Valley was also created thanks to those types of teachers and professors. We could begin with the father of Silicon Valley, this professor, Frederick Terman, who encouraged two Stanford students, and we're talking about more than 80 years ago, Bill Hewitt and David Packard, right there next to the university in Palo Alto in a garage. They founded this company, now multinational HP, which is led globally right now by another entrepreneur, Ricky Loris. And the same model has been repeated year after year. There's Rajiv Motwani, who encouraged two students, also from Stanford, Mr. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, to continue with their research, to leave the campus, and next to the campus in 167 University Avenue, so right next door, they founded Google, the company that really has changed our lives. By the way, and without trying to fall into black humor, but this gentleman that helped so many people to fly, to get far, recently died in his own pool by not knowing how to swim. So he knew how to fly, but didn't know how to swim. So this is something teachers need to keep in mind. The moral to be learned is you have to give, but you have to know how to receive as well. So Mr. Great Rajiv Motwani, who improved lots of our lives thanks to Google. But entrepreneurship doesn't mean just starting up companies, but what is entrepreneurship? It's also a word that's hard to spell. Entrepreneurship is, if there's a problem, turn that into a challenge, and that challenge into a solution, that solution, try to turn that into a dream, and then fight to the death to make sure that this becomes reality. So this can be applied to a company, or one can also be an entrepreneur in teaching, or an entrepreneur in working on turning problems into solutions in your personal life. I continue. I've always been an entrepreneur. First, I was based in Barcelona, now in California. But for me, one of the acts of entrepreneurship that I remember most fondly is this picture when I was 12 years old. I feel a bit shy about showing this to you, but with one of my classmates and encouraged by Tony Turrens, a professor of physics, we decided to take place in this competition, invention competition that took place on TV, and we won this fantastic computer you can see on the screen. And I discovered, thanks to this, my passion for technology, and I've spent my entire life working on these kind of inventions and being an entrepreneur, especially within technology. But we didn't just win this computer. What we also won was the realization of what we could achieve thanks to teamwork and motivated by a dream, which in this case, our dream was to win the competition. And based on a series of abilities, creativity, to be able to talk about our project before the jury And that's something that changed my life forever. So thank you to that professor who had such a positive impact on my life as well. And if you would let me, I would like to talk a little bit about the fact that entrepreneurship is more necessary now than ever. And why? Well, what's going on in education? The world is changing quite quickly. New technologies are exponentially and radically changing everything. Therefore, we don't know what professions we're going to be having in the future. We might be learning something that might not be of any use in the future, but being an entrepreneur will be useful in the future, because in this world with AI and technology that will be doing in the future so many things that humans do now, well, our role will be being human. So we have to be more creative, have a greater capacity to give answers to the problems that appear along the way. We'll be able to communicate, but everything has to do with entrepreneurship. All of those skills will be beneficial to us in the future. So we have to foster those skills. And we're in a world where continuously surprises are showing up. One day it's a pandemic, the next day it's a war, the next day it's climate change. So we need to have this entrepreneurship spirit to be able to deal with these problems, but to move just beyond protest, to go beyond that, from protest to proposal. This requires entrepreneurship. So how can we learn to be entrepreneurs, or how can we foster entrepreneurship in education? And this is what I'd like to talk about for the next 15 minutes. I'd like to just share 4 little key ideas with you of many that I could talk about that has to do with lessons to be learned or lessons learned, me and my team, that we have learned over the last 10 years. There in California, we founded Imagine. Imagine is an innovation center where we help companies to innovate and to have an entrepreneuring spirit. And we foster that entrepreneuring spirit. We do this all over the world. We travel to lots of different countries, work with people from many different cultures, organizing big competitions of entrepreneurship. Thanks to the foundation, the Princess of Girona. Some of you have been, I think, were in this event in Valencia. It's one of the competitions that we participated in or set up, and not just with students, but with teachers as well. From all these experiences, all these years, 10 altogether, in fact, carrying out many programs of innovation, entrepreneurship, traveling around with thousands of young people, thousands of teachers. So these are 4 key ideas I would like to share about how to foster entrepreneurship, which we need so much in our society, and how to do that specifically within education. That means both in the classroom and outside the classroom. So I'll be talking more about in the classroom, but we know that education is more than just what we do in the classroom. So the first key idea: entrepreneurship is learnt by engaging in entrepreneurship, and it's quite simple, but it's very important. So theory is not enough to be an entrepreneur. I say it's like riding a bike. You can see a video on YouTube or someone can explain it to you, but that's not going to actually teach you how to do it. You have to get on the bicycle, fall, get up again. Of course, your brother, your mother, your father might help you, and at the end of the day, you end up riding a bike. And it's very interesting with the bike, isn't it, that once you learn it, you never forget it. And entrepreneurship is the same thing. We need to come up with real experiences of entrepreneurship that give young people the chance to actually live in their flesh what entrepreneurship is, learning by doing. So imagine, the more radical certain experiences have been, the better they've worked. For many years, we were trying to turn a train into an innovation center. A bunch of people don't know each other would get on the train. 5,000 minutes going from Paris to London, London to Paris, and then back. And in this super intense, radical trip, these people needed to form groups, come up with solutions, make a first presentation in London, then the Mobile World Congress, etc. So it's a radical experiment, but it worked. And these young people, when they're faced with this challenge and have this experience where they have to leave their literal comfort zone there. It's a whole weekend without sleeping very much on a train, so it's very intense. With some tension, they have to also defend their ideas with a pitch right there, for example, in front of investors in the London Eye. These ones you can see are Gloria Molins and Mateo Pereira. They met on the train. I think that was in 2014. They created Tree for Real, a company that would send to Airbnb and became Airbnb experiences, but they created in this not very comfortable setting this very successful project, and they also fell in love and formed a family, and they have 2 children now. So I don't know whether or not actually began in the train, but I mean, it could have been something that began there. But in any case, entrepreneurship is not only companies, but also personal projects, such as between the two of them. You can see how they're looking at each other. You can tell right then. You can see there's something important that they're going to be creating together. One can see it from the look on their face. But then here's a challenge that's related to the first one, the importance of real challenges. What do I mean by real challenges? One must not underestimate young people's capacity to create true solutions for society, because we believe that we have challenges that have to do by giving them ping pong balls and Lego pieces to work with. Young people, what we found is when they have greater motivation, when there is true benefit or yield or return, true challenges, something that they need to actually solve, real challenges. And this has normally worked for us really well. I'm just talking about statistics when we're giving them 2 kinds of challenges. One, those challenges that have to do with social challenges facing our society, and there's every day more and more of those, unfortunately. Gender violence, bullying, poverty, energy poverty, mental illnesses, problems for the elderly. Those as part of this technological elevation that we can see is having a certain societal impact that's not so positive. And then the second hand, there's everything that has to do with climate change, sustainability, that this future that there's no guarantee for young people for. So thanks to these 2 different challenges, we've been able to create big solutions. We've got, for example, Clara and Paula and Inalu, 3 girls from La Coruña, who, working together with their teacher, Beatriz, were able to take education to refugee centers and to other areas where it was hard to get to. So these are young women. They are minors, but working on a very real challenge. So now we have this talent pool. The winning team from Malaga, which is one of the cities we work in as well, is having a very positive impact right now on a problem or challenge, which is becoming more and more serious, which is youth unemployment. And they've come up with a creative solution that's being implemented in reality. This is something that just started 2 months ago. They came up with the idea, now working together with the City Council of Malaga. This is actually being implemented. These 2 girls here, which are contributing to changing the rules of the game in energy consumption and therefore benefiting, also working on fighting climate change. So there's all these different challenges that we've done together with the Princess of Girona Foundation. We've realized that you're never too young to have big dreams and to create big things. If you work with young people, you have to make sure that they believe in a better future, but you have to give them the tools to create that, because if you believe you can create, both aspects are important, believing that you can do something and being given the opportunity to really do so, to be able to work on this future that you want to be part of as a young person. So the third key issue, and this is something that we've talked about a lot, is that we have to foster the culture of making mistakes, of erring in education, in society. Education continues to punish people who create mistakes, but we have to celebrate errors and mistakes. It helps us learn. It helps us learn more quickly. And just to show this point, here's a personal anecdote where you can see a mistake I made, but that taught me a lot. On the 21st of July, 2001, I lost all my money. And I remember this exact date. I came from a relatively poor family. I set up my startup, and I made my mother a partner within the company. And things went well in the beginning until the only client that we were working for disappeared. And we were in an extremely difficult situation. I couldn't imagine anything worse in life than I couldn't pay the paychecks for my employees. We had debts with the banks, and I had to hide from my mother for her not to realize that her son was a failure. This is not a good country to be a failure in. So for me, that was the worst thing that could happen to me in my life. Over time, I realized it was the best thing that happened in my life, professionally, because it forced us to learn so many things. that we had to change so many things. There was no other choice. And with my colleagues, we brought the company back up. The very same company that we went bankrupt with, we were able to change everything and make things work out. Because I was an engineer, and so we made changes, for example, working in groups of 2, so many things I could tell you. But we changed everything about the company, thanks to which we were able to grow, sell the company. So not only was there a return on our investment, but also I was able to let my mother, and so my mother was able to retire with a certain amount of money. And a lot of beautiful things happened to me afterwards. It led me to, eventually, I sold the company, traveled around the world. It was the best year of my life. I went through all over the world traveling. I visited countries, fantastic countries. That's when I went to the Dominican Republic, by the way, since we have a representative here, and I fell in love. And I've been back many times since then. While I was going around the world, we were in a hurricane at a particular point, which also was a difficult moment, but led to so many beautiful things. I can't give you the details, but that's another story about that kind of situation. This led me to Stanford, where I came on a trip discovering Silicon Valley and founded this innovation center that I'm going to talk to you about now. And I met my destiny, and I dedicate myself to this now, working especially with young people, fostering entrepreneurship. So I hope that this is a way of understanding that when you commit a mistake or you suffer from sort of failure, it's very difficult for you at the moment, but it helps you in the future. And I always say, remember that sooner or later, something like that will happen. Good things are going to happen. So learn from your mistakes as quickly as possible. Don't make that same mistake again, learn your lessons, but trust your instinct as well and keep going and think that the decisions that you take, many of them will be thanks to the mistake you made, and they'll lead to good things. So follow your instinct. Get beyond that mistake. Understand that mistake is part of the learning process. Last key idea, and this is now specifically for the teachers present, the importance of teachers as someone who facilitates learning. We just talked about the importance of a teacher. Teachers can never be removed from the idea of education. Sometimes we tend to think about the idea that technology can help us with education, and we forget the teachers. But we have to remember that teaching is all about people, and the role of teachers is essential. But we have to change exactly what the role of teachers is. It doesn't make any sense for them to come into class and to transfer knowledge that could be acquired quickly and more easily via internet. The role of the teacher is not so much to give knowledge, but rather to facilitate education, teaching, to provoke the teacher, motivate them, to be a type of trainer, mentor, coach for the student, to get the best out of the student and everyone else around them. A teacher as a facilitator is not a downgrade. That doesn't reduce the value of what it means to be a teacher. You need a calling. You need to be devoted to that, to being a teacher. And we've seen in all the competitions that we've done in Imagine and all of these entrepreneurship challenges that we've done as well, that this role of teacher, this role that the person who's trying to get the best out of their students is absolutely essential. And when it works well, then learning is easier and the results are more impressive. So I would like to encourage now all teachers to offer homage to those we mentioned before, Frederick Terman, Rajiv Motwani, to each of the teachers that we've all remembered here today, those names you all mentioned earlier. We need more people like them, more people who are those who facilitate things for us, that change our lives, that bring the best out of students, and they're going to foster this entrepreneurship that we need so much. And aside from those of you who are teachers or are going to be teachers, all of us, each of us, can be a kind of teacher, like these professors that we've talked about here, or teachers we've talked about, because when you are being an entrepreneur, you'll find two types of people. There are those people that when you can tell them your dream, be it professional or personal, well, we've got a society where there's sometimes a type of envy, and they will perhaps try and they won't really encourage you. They'll say, oh, that's not going to be impossible. You're going to find this and that problem. If you find someone like that, there's two things you could do. The first thing is, when they say that something's impossible, change that into very difficult. And you can say, I know that it's very difficult, but that's what I'm working on. And secondly, thank that person and try to change that attempt for them to strip you of your encouragement into exactly the opposite. If you can continue to maintain your motivation, then it will be the best day for you and not such a great day for them. But that's not easy to do. I mean, negative energy spreads from one person to another, but one has to work on it. Then there's another type of people, like these teachers that we've remembered today. These people that when you tell them about your dream, they get involved in your dream. They support you, and they help you not when things are going well for you, but in the moments of difficulty, when you've made a mistake and you need to process that and move forward. These people are unconditional, and they're not teachers always. They could be your brother, father, mother, your boyfriend or girlfriend, your friend that's by your side for the best and the worst. And I always say an unconditional friend is a friend where if one day you said you killed someone, they would say, where shall we bury them? I don't know if you got someone like that in your life. Have you got someone in your life? If you've got that person, take good care of them. Those are the people that you need on your team. On your team. That doesn't mean only the people you work with, but these people that help you through difficult moments. These people, like all the teachers we've remembered here today, people aren't only there with you, living with you like every day was your last one as if it was the best day, but living every day with you like it was your first. Those people, be they your teachers or friends or your boyfriend or girlfriend or family members, people who help you feel that you've got a new opportunity every day, learning from the mistakes of yesterday, taking advantage of today's opportunities for a better tomorrow. So, and these will be my last words. I would encourage you either to engage in entrepreneurship or to assist those who are doing so. But at the end of the day, we all need to be entrepreneurs to try to build a new world, a new way of living, especially after everything that's going on right now. Moreover, and this is perhaps the last argument I'll be trying to give you to help you or encourage you to engage in entrepreneurship, by being entrepreneurs, you also live the life, this short life that we've got. You'll live it more intensely, more fully, and make sure that it makes sense, that it has meaning. So learn as much as possible and live as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Me ha ajustado en el tiempo, ¿eh?
So I was just trying to stick to my time. I think we've got a few minutes perhaps for questions or comments or whatever you would like to.
Un par de preguntas. Empezamos por aquí. Sí. Ay, perdón, que te acerque un micro para que se grabe bien.
Gracias. En muchas universidades, bueno.
Santiago Acosta from the Technical University in Ecuador. I think that we have a few universities today who do not have activities in terms of entrepreneurship. But what we don't have, according to my experience, is entrepreneurship as part of learning. How do you teach entrepreneurship? And as you said, you learn by doing, but the change in the frame of mind is something that requires encouragement. From your point of view, how does one integrate the teaching of entrepreneurship tools in higher education, and if you look at and also the typical incubator? Well, I like thinking on the basis of examples and experience. In one case that we have in Spain, and we have an alumni here, in fact two, the University of Navarra. This is a university we work with quite a lot, and this is a very clear example of how to integrate entrepreneurship. insofar as the system allows, in the various disciplines in the classroom, combining it with voluntary work outside the classroom. So I could tell you about more initiatives that we've launched, but this is a case that does demonstrate that it's possible. What's complicated is what do you do in the classroom? Because at the end of the day, you have a program and you need to follow it. But this university has found spaces to ensure that entrepreneurship is integrated. It is part of the normal curriculum. And this is a very good example. So you need to find a way. It's not that difficult, but you do need to have entrepreneurship teachers who are entrepreneurs, so that they have that experience and then they can change things. So teachers can do it, universities can do it. It isn't easy, but I can put you in touch with the University of Navarra. Go ahead.
Eu vou falar em português.
Okay.
Eu sou da Universidade Federal do Brasil.
Apologies, Portuguese is not covered in this meeting.
Dificuldades, e eu vi em vários professores aqui uma certa restrição à ideia do empreendedorismo, sob o argumento de que a universidade tem que ter uma visão crítica, ela precisa ser pública e comum, e bem comum, e o empreendedorismo ficaria um pouco ao lado. A universidade, ou o ensino, a educação superior, teria que ser revolucionário, teria que, ao invés de formar empreendedores, mudar o mundo para que tudo seja bem comum, tudo seja público. E quando nós falamos em empreendedorismo, nós estamos falando, de certa forma, em atividades fora do âmbito do Estado. Ou seja, o empreendedorismo, ele faz com que a ação final do Estado, da universidade, do ensino superior, fique fora do braço maior do Estado. Eu ouvi aqui, fiz até uma interferência, porque eu achei que é incompatível. Uma das razões não, mas eu tinha muito interesse de ouvir o que você ia falar aqui, porque na minha universidade nós criamos um centro de empreendedorismo, que não tinha. Poucas universidades no Brasil têm, pouquíssimas. Aqui na Espanha tem, eu conheço o da Complutense. Enfim, como é que você coordenaria isso? Como é que convive a ideia do empreendedorismo, que você está dizendo que o professor tem uma atuação para... Eu sou reitor da Universidade Federal do Ceará. Então, como é que você coloca para conviver a ideia do professor ensinar o aluno a empreender, portanto, ter uma atividade privada, se de um lado nós vamos ter também essa visão que eu ouvi aqui no Congresso várias vezes, de que a universidade tem que ser revolucionária, tudo tem que ser público, tudo tem que ser bem comum. Como é que fica isso?
Sí, siendo bien la pregunta y para aportar algo.
Thank you very much for the question. Let me try to add to that. We shouldn't have such different worlds. We shouldn't have the corporate world and the public world with social purposes and business purposes. I do not really understand the fact that you have an enterprise that's a private enterprise and that is there for business purposes and that does not serve any purpose in society. We all have problems. There's problems for the planet, and people who are employees in a company, if the company is also doing social work, I think that's fundamental. So I don't think that they're two separate worlds and that the business world isn't interested in the public world. Now, also you need to understand that when we foster entrepreneurship with a view to solve social issues or sustainability issues, there's the wrong idea that all of this is based on selflessness, not-for-profit. Well, maybe you have a company that's also an NGO. That's a model. How many companies do generate business but also have a social aim? That's very interesting. If you have a business with a social aim, the more business the more profit you make, the more you can invest in social issues. So I think that the two aspects, public and private, social and business, they should work hand in hand. I think that we should establish bridges. And I think that this is perhaps what I can respond to your question.
Mas não é o que a gente ouve. Eu acho que esse debate precisa ser aprofundado, sem maiores preconceitos. Eu acho que esse debate precisa ser feito. Eu ouvi alguns discursos aqui, de certa forma, ainda muito jovens, com pessoas idosas, mas uma certa adolescência no discurso, porque, claro, que todo empreendedor pensa no social, pensa na sociedade. Ele não vai viver sozinho. Mas a Universidade Complutense, por exemplo, tem um centro de empreendedorismo muito interessante, absolutamente interessante. E eu acho que é exatamente essa visão que você colocou, que me parece que é perfeitamente conciliável, mas, infelizmente, muitas pessoas dentro das universidades não pensam assim. Muito obrigado.
Gracias, obrigado. No sé si a ti...
Well, thank you, thank you. There's a last question here. No? There isn't a last question? Well, in any case, I can answer your questions outside the room. Thank you very much for your attention.